Real Virginia is proudly produced by the Virginia Farm Bureau Federation. Since 1926, Farm Bureau has been working to preserve Virginia farms and our rural heritage. Visit our website at virginiafarmbureau.com.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
Hello everyone and welcome to Real Virginia, a show about Virginia agriculture and the people who produce all of the wonderful products we enjoy. Brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau.
A Virginia young farmer captures a national award for bringing agriculture into the classroom. Gardeners should take special steps to assure their seedlings survive. And we visit Virginia's own Little Switzerland to learn more about how maple syrup is made.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here at Springfield Park Elementary School in Henrico County near Richmond, Virginia. And in this school, there's lots of unsung heroes, the teachers. But one teacher in Washington County was recently recognized nationwide for her efforts in the classroom and preparing tomorrow's future farmers.
Sarah Cipher spends her workdays shaping young lives at Holston High School, and in her off hours at the family cattle and sheep operation, she's also been busy collecting awards recently. Cipher's was honored as the Secondary School Teacher of the Year in Washington County and received a Models of Innovation grant from the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services and Virginia Tech. Those achievements caught the eye of the judges at the 2017 American Farm Bureau Federation National Convention, where she also won the Young Farmers and Ranchers Excellence in Agriculture Award. This award recognizes the best young farmer or rancher who does not derive the majority of their income from farm operations.
I talked a lot about my involvement in the agriculture industry locally, statewide, and nationally, and then my community, how I volunteered in my community. But then I really focused on my three main points that I felt like were issues that needed to be addressed in agriculture, and then what I had done and am doing to help address those issues.
Cipher says she is an ag education teacher first. She wants to see more career opportunities for her students and more funding for ag education programs across Virginia. And she works to show students from economically depressed communities that farming could be their path to financial stability.
Bring students in rural communities, really, and especially in our area that has been affected by coal and tobacco and different things, out of that almost poverty level into careers and out of that through agriculture, because there's a lot of really great ways that they can do that.
Cipher's classroom extends well beyond four walls and textbooks. It goes beyond studying traditional technical skills and training. Students in her classroom also work with a local elementary school where they share the importance of agriculture with third grade students through an Ag in the Classroom curriculum. And with grant money, she was able to build an outdoor learning lab and classroom at Holston High.
We've got a 3,000 square foot aquaculture facility where my students raise about 800 to 900 tilapia annually. They raise them from fingerling size all the way up to harvesting, and they'll harvest and market those tilapia to people in our community. We have an on-site livestock facility where students raise chickens, raise cattle, raise sheep. They're doing that here.
Cipher says ag education has evolved by leaps and bounds in the past 2 decades. High-tech curriculums are much more common in classrooms.
It's not the same program that a lot of adults remember with, and I say this all the time, cows, plows, and sows. It's using technology. We have a drone in my program that students learn how to use and fly a drone for crop scouting, to use it in agriculture, those things that they may need. 4-year college and university isn't for every student. A 2-year community college isn't for every student. Technical school may be where they need to go, and additional training. Some of them may leave my classroom and go straight into the agriculture industry and farming and production agriculture.
From elementary school to high school, this dynamic agriculture advocate stays focused on encouraging the next generation of Virginia farmers.
The importance of agriculture in our nation's classrooms began to fade in the early 20th century as more and more rural Americans gravitated to urban areas. In the 1960s, a number of efforts were made to improve ag literacy, but there was no national coordination. In 1981, the National Agriculture in the Classroom program was created. The program is housed within the U.S. Department of Agriculture, but there are affiliated groups in every state. In 2017, the Virginia Ag in the Classroom program is celebrating a quarter century of helping to incorporate farming into the lesson plans of thousands of students each year.
Hi, next we're going to be talking about how to have successful transplants from the ground up. Please stay tuned.
Horses, food, and fun. It's all coming March 24th to the 26th at the Virginia Horse Festival at the Meadow Event Park. Experience 3 days of family-friendly activities for the horse lover in all of us. Shop vendors selling boots, barns, food, and trailers. See Outback Horseman extraordinaire Guy McLean show off the traditions of the Australian bush. Visit the Chenery collection of rare Meadow Stable memorabilia as we celebrate the birthday of Secretariat, America's most famous racehorse. Learn more at virginiahorsefestival.com or on Facebook on the Virginia Horse Festival page.
Many gardeners raise their seedlings in the winter to plant later in the spring, and that's great. But Chris Mullins says there are several steps you need to take before you plant from the ground up.
Hi and welcome. Today we're at Virginia State University's Randolph Farm. We're here with Susan Cheek. Susan manages the horticulture demonstration for the small farm group here at VSU. And we're going to talk about transplants. Now this time of year, most of you are thinking about, should I make transplants? Should I buy them? And especially if you've got a greenhouse or a sunroom or grow lights, you can really make some nice transplants. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Susan, what are some things that people need to think about? Do they need to plan far in advance of when they're going to plant their transplants into the ground?
They do. I would think you want to start your plants 4 to 8 weeks before you want to actually put them in the ground, or buy them large enough to put in the ground.
Okay, that makes sense. And I noticed when you look at some of these different cell packs and containers, they're all different sizes.
Right.
Is there an optimum size, or are these pretty normal?
The smaller you go, the smaller the plant's going to be. So these guys are pretty small. Those are going to be 72 count cells. These are probably 48 cell counts. Okay. You're going to probably most often see something along this or this in your local hardware store or garden center.
Okay. I noticed these here. Is it a good idea to always invest in something like this just to mark your transplant so you know what they are?
I definitely would. There's a lot of plants that look very, very similar when they're small.
That's right. It's a good investment so you don't get mixed up. Now, these are grown. We're in a nice greenhouse now, and some people might have a greenhouse. The plants are given plenty of water, warm temperatures, and they really have lush growth. Now, do you want to put these directly out into the garden at this when they're ready?
No, you need to do what's called hardening them off for about 2 weeks. You're going to take them down in the day, take them outside so they get used to that wind, the rain, a little bit cooler temperatures. Bring them back in at night. Just like your animals, you don't want them outside when it gets that cold. The plants don't want it that cold either.
Okay. So basically, though, this just gets them ready. Gets them ready to really what are harsh conditions compared to these greenhouse conditions, right?
Right.
So whether you make your own or maybe even if you buy them at a garden center, sometimes they're not hardened off. You might want to just get them out, get them exposed to wind and sunlight, because it's a lot different than in here.
I'd say even from a garden center, at least 1 week, harden them off before you put them in the ground.
Now, Susan, is there a danger in some of these containers of getting too root bound?
There is, most definitely. And what you're going to find from some greenhouse plants is they've held them too long. So when you see those discount racks, they're probably root bound. And this is how your plant's going to look if it's root bound.
Okay.
What I would do is either take a knife or your hands and just break that root up a little bit before you plant it. That'll give it a chance to stretch out and grow the way you want it to grow in the ground.
Okay. Well, let's look at that, Susan. Let's plant one of these, maybe in this container right here. And I know that whether you're doing it in the ground or you're doing it in a container like this, inside we're using this media, this soilless media. And so you're going to fill your container up almost to the top, I'm guessing, right?
I would. At least 3/4 of the way.
Right.
And
so
then
that
what you
root bound
do,
one.
you're going to take this and break it up a little bit.
Okay. And you're not hurting the roots really,
It's
are you?
not hurting the roots a bit. It's just let them stretch out. You're going to make a little hole in the middle, and you want to plant it right about level with the top of the transplants. If you put this too far down, you're going to have problems with things like dampen off, where the moisture is going to have issues for your plants.
Okay. So whether you're outside in the garden in normal soil or this type of media, you want to kind of level it off with where it's at from the container.
Right.
And how about watering? I know this material, it dries out quickly, a little bit more than some soil. So if you're going to do container gardening, you want to water it pretty often?
Right.
Okay. And the same thing, I guess, with the soil. Once you put the transplant in, you want to get some water to it.
I would say as soon as you plant, you want to water for sure for the first 2 weeks to let your plants get established, whether they're in pots or whether they're outside. If you're in a pot, you're going to pretty much have to water most every day. Just check it. You don't want it wet, you want it moist.
Okay. Well, these are great tips. I think if people were to follow a few of these things, they would be successful with their plants.
I think so too.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us today about some of these tips that can help people with their transplants. Well, for more information about transplants, hardening off, please contact your local county extension office and talk to a master gardener. For From the Ground Up, I'm Chris Mullins, and we'll see you next time.
From the Ground Up is presented with the generous advice and assistance of Virginia Cooperative Extension. Visit their website at ext.vt.edu.
Corn is a great ingredient for soups and stews, but coconut? Sure, says Chef John Maxwell. We'll have a recipe for corn and coconut chowder next in the Heart of the Home.
From our farms to your table. Virginia dairy farm families are dedicated to providing your family with nutritious, high-quality milk.
I'm Dan Myers, a fifth-generation dairy farmer from Virginia.
I'm Roy Vanderhyde, a first-generation dairy farmer from Virginia.
I'm Gerald Heatwole, a third-generation dairy farmer from Virginia.
I am dedicated to dairy, my cows,
My milk,
and our land.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our show and, of course, Heart of the Home here at Meadow Hall at Meadow Event Park. With me, the amazing Chef John Maxwell. And today we've got a secret recipe for soup.
Oh, well, it's not going to be secret for long, that's for sure. But the important thing about this soup is that it's gluten-free and vegan. Right, so it hits all of those contemporary buttons. Right? I've turned the heat on underneath here. It's hot, so getting hot rather. And I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. We got that working. I'm going to add some garlic to it.
So it's going to start smelling fantastic.
Yes, it wouldn't be Italian without garlic.
No.
So I've got the garlic working in there. Going to just wait for a second for that to happen. I'm going to add some green onion or some scallion bottoms that I've sliced. Add that in there. So there's onions and garlic sauteing in there. And next is going to be one of Virginia's premier crops.
Yes.
Right, corn. So I'm going to add the corn in there. Now you can use fresh corn cut off the cob, or you can use frozen, or you can use canned. Either way, this is a pretty versatile recipe for soup.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Stir this around. Oh, you hear that singing to us?
What about these peppers here? When do they go?
Yeah, we got the seeds out of those yet?
Okay, I'm working on it, Chef. Yes, Chef.
Right. Okay. Now we're going to season this up a little bit with some Asian spices. And I've got two over here. One is called garam masala, and the other one is called curry powder. Now everybody has heard of curry powder. They might not have heard of garam masala.
Right.
Curry powder is got a lot of spiciness to it. Usually there's about 20 different spices in a good curry powder. Right? And you add that in early in your cooking process. So we're going to add that in now.
Do I get to cut this too?
Yeah.
Little strips like that?
Just little strips like that. Is that knife okay for you?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's a pretty big knife. All right, so I'm adding the curry powder in here because it's spicy and as it cooks, it blooms and more of the spice comes out. All right, so let's stir that around. Now we're going to add coconut milk. We're going to add 2 cans of what's called light coconut milk. You can smell that curry beginning to work. All right, now we're going to add a little
Oh, it
bit
smells really good.
of Thai chili paste. About a good solid teaspoon and a half of Thai chili.
So will this be spicy?
It'll be a bit spicy, yeah. This is, as I said, this is gluten-free and vegan. So there's a lot of the flavor elements that most of us are used to having in food that are not in here. And it has a tendency to be flat if you don't use some good spices in it. So. All right, we're going to add a little bit of cilantro.
Okay.
All right.
Is it fresh cilantro or does it matter?
I always use fresh, but that's because I grow it at home.
Okay.
But there really isn't a problem. Any of these herbs that I use, you can use dried. You know, all that's kind of missing from them is water.
Okay.
Right? Especially if I'm making a soup, I could add dried cilantro in it, and in 10 minutes it's going to be reconstituted essentially in the soup. Same thing with dried parsley. And I'm going to add some green onion. Stir that around, and now we're going to add something for volume. I'm going to add some rice drink.
Okay.
About 2 cups of that.
But if people need your recipe,
Just go to chefjohnmaxwell.com, and the recipes and this video will be up there.
okay, there's your peppers, which add another beautiful color to the soup.
Now what we've got to do is just kind of go.
Nope, you know the grandma said, watch pot never boils. Do we want it to boil?
Do we want to test that? All right, this is boiling. You should start off.
Even if we did watch it.
Yes, indeed. All right, so that's working beautifully. Now it's time for the garam masala. I told you that the curry powder was for heat and warmth and goes in first so it has a chance to really work. All right, the garam masala goes in at the end because it's mostly aromatics. This is for just the bouquet. All right, now it's ready to go. Let me get a bowl.
Oh, I wish you guys could smell this. It smells wonderful.
All right, so now let's set this out front here where you guys can see it and see how those colors are just jumping in that soup. That's a corn and rice drink soup, gluten-free, vegan.
Every week, we make recipes using great Virginia-grown food. We make them in our kitchen so you can make them in your kitchen. Join us next week on Heart of the Home when we get to play with more great Virginia food.
Recipes from the Heart of the Home can be found on Chef Maxwell's website, chefjohnmaxwell.com. While Virginia farmers raised 48.3 billion bushels of corn last year, very little of that was sweet corn. The vast majority of corn raised in the Old Dominion or elsewhere in the U.S. is produced for animal feed, ethanol, or other processed foods. Sweet corn, or corn destined for fresh human consumption, is harvested much earlier than field corn and is much tastier. Virginia ranks 21st nationally in production of sweet corn, and Virginians are able to enjoy fresh corn on the cob all summer long. More than 90 years ago, the Virginia Farm Bureau made a promise to our local farmers to protect and preserve a way of life they'd worked so hard to establish. Today, our insurance agents work to protect all Virginians, not just farmers. Anyone can be a Farm Bureau member and enjoy the many benefits of membership. There's a local Farm Bureau in every county of the state. We think everyone should be a friend of the farm. Visit our website at virginiafarmbureau.com to learn more.
The tradition of boiling maple sap into maple sugar dates back to before the American pioneer days. And while there are many northern states who still make maple syrup, according to Dave Miller, there are a few Virginia sugar makers who are continuing to keep things sweet.
Just east of the West Virginia state line are several sugar camps in Highland County, Virginia. Each spring, the farm families that run those operations start tapping maple trees and collecting their sap to turn into maple syrup. It takes 48 gallons of maple sugar water to make 1 gallon of syrup. And that means folks like Glenn Heatwole stay very, very busy.
And when the freezing and thawing looks like it's going to be right, we go out there and tap those trees, and the water starts running. So then we start running. So we go out and collect the water. It's a 40-mile trip. Takes a little over 2 hours to pump the water out of the tanks, bring it into the sugar house. We pump it into the tank here in the sugar house. Next, we run it through a reverse osmosis and concentrate that water, get rid of 3/4 of the water, feed it to the fish in Bull Pasture River and Crab Run, and the concentrate comes into the evaporators, and we evaporate that syrup and turn it into that sugar water and turn it into syrup.
Heatwole says sugar maples are a renewable resource. They can be tapped anywhere from the age 25 to 250 years. He leases the trees from local farmers and fills tanks with up to 1,600 gallons of sugar water in the field before bringing them back to his store to make maple syrup.
Dump it into the finishing pan so that we can bring the syrup up to the right specific gravity of 59 bricks. BRIX is what syrup is. And that's putting the finishing touches on it in that finishing pan there before I pump it through this filter press. If you want to shoot right down in there, you can see that flame. There's a 7-gallon nozzle in the front. There's a 10-gallon nozzle in the back. They're facing each other. So those nozzles are pumping 17 gallons of diesel fuel per hour to cook that syrup.
A visit to the Sugar Tree Country store is a step back in time. Glenn's wife, Fern Heatwole, chats with customers about old farm and maple syrup traditions. The store is packed with just about everything that can be made with maple syrup or that can be canned from local produce. Early American settlers collected maple water by tapping trees with hollow wooden spikes and boiling it down in huge iron pots. Today, Sugar Camp uses plastic tubing and stainless steel pans to accomplish the same goal. But it's still hard work, and the Highland County Maple Festival is one of the first examples of agritourism in the Old Dominion.
We have a high elevation from one side of Highland County to the other side of Highland County. You have 9 mountains that you need to cross to get from one side to the other. Maple syrup is what puts the food on the table. That's what makes ends meet.
The Sugar Tree Country Store is one of several stops on a driving tour that's part of the annual Maple Festival. In addition to visiting the sugar camps, festival goers can purchase arts and crafts, enjoy local music, and gorge on pancakes doused with fresh syrup. The festival brings 50,000 to 80,000 visitors to this remote county each March. The 2017 festival is scheduled for March 11th and 12th, and also the 18th and 19th. It's your chance to bring home your own bottle of sweet success. In Highland County, Virginia, this is Dave Miller.
That's going to do it for this edition of Real Virginia. We are so glad you could join us to celebrate the bounty Virginia has to offer. Whether it's in your home, your garden, or your landscape, we are proud to say that this is Real Virginia. So for everyone from the Virginia Farm Bureau, thanks for watching. Make it a good week.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay.